Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report for the 19th day in the 11th month, the 16th year of Changi. And today, of course, is Wednesday. And so we're going to step back from the hullabaloo of the daily news and we're going to take another look at the OSDP content, original substance of the divine principle. 원리 본체론, 원리, of course, meaning principle, and 본체 meaning main body, as I've explained. If you have a computer, then you got the main body, and you've got all sorts of accessories attached to the main body. And so God is the main body of love. He's the main body of the principle, and he's the main body of law and order, and a whole bunch of other things. So this is the original substance of the principle. Is how we've translated it into English. But in Korean, it is 원리, 본체. So let's pick up where we left off last week. So we are on slide number 167, and let me go ahead and uh, share and then go into the slideshow mode from the current slide. Okay, and we get rid of this. You're probably seeing a black strip here. This is the floating meeting controls. There we go. Got rid of that. Got rid of this up here. Okay. So last week we began. Okay. We began talking about the purpose of creation. And number one was the purpose and motivation for the creation. And motivation for the creation is joy and love. The purpose of creation is the object of resembles God. God created us in his image. So we must resemble God. That is, he created us to resemble God. And an object that is good, as it is in John 14:20. And then, as in Matthew 5:48, you shall be perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. Perfect and complete object. And in Genesis 1:28, object of Shimjong. And this object of Shimjong is the three great blessings. So let's talk about the three great blessings today, which are given to us in Genesis 1:28. Just to remind us, if we need to be reminded of Genesis 1:28, probably the one Bible verse that occurs more than any other in the principle and in Father's words. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, Be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. So fruitful, multiply, and have dominion. These are the three blessings that God gave to Adam and Eve. And by the way, not only to Adam and Eve, but he also gives them to other central figures down the line. But and so he's also giving this same blessings to us, uh, who especially those who are blessed central families, to be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion over the earth. But these are not something that we just wake up one day and do, right? We need to understand the content of the blessings and then how we're going to realize that. So when mind and bodies centering are one, centering on God, then we have a human being who is one body, and is also the temple of God, and is perfect as our Father in heaven is perfect. And then this we have a heavenly people and of Shimjong and absolute sex, and this occurs through Shimjong education. We talked in the when we talked about the theory of education in an earlier slide, in an earlier version of this series. We talked about the Shimjong education in the family. This is where character is taught, and then education of norms, the norms of the family, and then education of skills. Oops, whoop, 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 whoop. Where we go? Okay, education of skills, where we have knowledge, and the actual sort of this is the dominion part, right? So here we have uh, to be fruitful, meaning to Shimjong education, because the fruitful because the spirit self, the spirit, mind, and body are they grow like a fruit on the physical self, the physical mind and body. And the physical mind and body grow according to the principle. In other words, you just have to add, the appropriate amount of sunlight and water and nutrition, so forth, and the physical body of a human being will grow. But the character is something else. The character is something that has to then uh, grow as kind of like a fruit of the physical body. And so that's why we say that the character education is the blessing to be fruitful. And then two people who the original God's design was that then two people who had achieved this unity of mind and body centering on God would come together as a man of that who has accomplished the first blessing and a woman who has accomplished the first blessing, coming together, have a give and receive action, and then create a family with a child and children, and then these families then would multiply. They would multiply one family, and then the children have their families. So that becomes a tribe, and tribes get together. Many tribes come together. They multiply into many tribes, and then that becomes an ethnic group. And you have different ethnic groups, and living in different parts of the world, and or different parts of an area, and they create a nation, and then the world, and then the cosmos and God. So those are, of course, the 8 stages of horizontal restoration that we know about already. And then, so once we have created character, and also we've created a family, then human beings are ready to have a give and receive action with the rest of God's creation, which we call all things, or manmu in Korean. So then we have this give and receive action with all things, centering on God's ideal. And we understand that ideal now. We are one in Shimjong with God. And we understand how God wants to rule or govern his creation. And this will then create the kingdom of heaven in the physical world. And then when we move into the spirit world, and then it automatically creates the kingdom of heaven in the spirit world. And then that is Choniguk. And to do this, then we need education of skills. And I explained last time that in order to love creation, we need to know about creation. And this is where education of knowledge and skills and so forth becomes necessary. We also need strong bodies and healthy bodies in order to do this. So we need physical education as well. So I gave the example last time that you don't give peanut butter to a person who is allergic to peanut butter or to peanuts, right? You need to know about that person and what that person needs in order to love that person. And same thing with creation. We need to know each plant, each tree, the mushrooms, which mushrooms are edible, which mushrooms are not. We need to know about the animals. Can dogs eat chocolate? No. If you love a dog, you know that dogs are not supposed to eat chocolate. That kind of knowledge about each and every part of God's creation is necessary in order for us to love it, in order for us to give proper dominion over it. And of course, we have not been doing a very good job of this because we don't have, we haven't even accomplished the first blessing, much less the second blessing. And so we've caused a huge amount of damage to God's creation and to all things. Many species have gone extinct because of us. And there was one place in Father's words where he said that at some point human beings are going to have to uh, bring back all the species that have gone extinct since the beginning of history. Okay, I don't know how it's going to happen, but that's what the Father has said. We need to take responsibility for the damage that we have caused. This huge garbage patch, I guess they call it. What do they call it in the Pacific Ocean? About the size of Texas or something like that. All in plastic stuff floating in the ocean, and sometimes we hear about seals that get sort of caught in tires or something like that, or other wild animals getting caught in tires, old tires, things like this, and they suffer as a result. This is the kind of terrible way in which we have been exercising dominion over creation. And it certainly brings sorrow to God's heart when he sees that this is the way that it's going on. Um, and when we learn about God's creation, oftentimes we use it for destructive purposes. We learned how to extract energy from an atom, for example, through nuclear fission. And what do? Well, we created an atom bomb. So that kind of thing. And if we could if we were directing our knowledge in more positive and constructive ways, we would be doing a much better job of exercising dominion over creation. So the three great blessings, the three blessings that God gives, that God has given in Genesis 1:28, they really encapsulate God's ideal for Chonyabuk, for his ideal kingdom in the physical world and the spirit world. And so we need to understand these, and we need to, well, we can, we're all working on number one, right? We're all working on mind body unity, centering on God's purpose and God's word. And then the greatest of the three blessings is the blessing of marriage. And this is the second one here. Because this is where we are able to inherit God's true love, true life, true lineage, and absolute sex. And absolute sex is the completion of the realm of liberation through the portion of responsibility. Completing our character is our portion of responsibility. This is where God does not intervene. He cannot intervene as long as we are in the indirect dominion. And not just because of the fall, right? Not just because of the fall. Even in the original design, God would not intervene during the formation stage and the growth stage, the first two stages. It is only in the third stage, when we come under God's direct dominion, that he is then able to intervene with us directly. So we need to complete our character through the unity of mind and body, and of course we are working on that in many ways every day. And studying God's word, Father's word, is one important way in which we are doing that. Okay, it doesn't move. There we go. So it's an explanation of the three blessings: the individual, four-position foundation. This is the God and human, one body, John 14:20. Let's take a look at that. John 14:20. Yes, okay. At that day ye shall know that I am in my Father, and ye in me, and I in you. So unity of human beings and God in love, right? As it says in the 8th stanza of the Family Pledge. And we are the temple of God, as it says in 1 Corinthians 3:16, and perfect as our Father in heaven is perfect. Okay, I think we've already covered this one pretty well. So okay, let's go to the next one. God's creation ideal and purpose of the family type four-position foundation. God's purpose of creation is the realization of true love. And the basis for the realization of God's true love is the family type four-position foundation. God's true love appears through divisible love. And by divisible love, we mean that parents can have many children, and parents can love each child fully, and can give 100% of their love to each of the children, right? As opposed to, let's say, a husband and wife, okay, and the man gives even 0.1% of his love to another woman. That's problem, right? That is not divisible. The love between the horizontal love between husband and wife is not divisible. It is one package that cannot be divided. So there's a downward love. We say here downward, horizontal, upwards, horizontal. So the horizontal love, well, especially the couple's love, cannot be divided. Okay. Sibling love, of course, can be, even though it's horizontal, but not the couple's love. Okay. All right. And morals and ethics here, norms for behavior in individual life, and the norms for behavior in individual truth body, norms of let's see, this is why I had this on a, let me share this without, I can see now why I was doing it this other way. Okay, hold on a second. As I was going through making these changes, right? But we can still get rid of this. And make this bigger. Is that about as big as it gets? Okay. But I was then changing this here, okay. And here. So norms for the completion of the first blessing, completion of character, and the completion of the individual four position foundation. This is these norms between the subject, and the object partner, the subject partner again. And the norms for completion of the let me see here. Okay. Second blessing, completion of the family, four position foundation, object partner norms. So morals and ethics, and in the way of heaven, order for the solar system of a connected body. So the solar system, or the way that the human society works or family works, is similar in some ways to the way that the solar system works, where you have parents in the middle. And then you have vertically, you have great grandparents, child, and grandchildren, and then you have horizontally, you have the children, and then the family becomes as a connected body, and it is governed by the family ethics. And so the family in this way is the basic building block of the kingdom of heaven. And that is why Satan has worked so hard to tear apart and undermined families in what happened here? Okay, yeah, he has worked so hard to undermine families, and this is also the reason that the solution to most, perhaps almost all of the social problems that we have today lie in the families, lie in the family. So, for the drug problem, and for the sexual promiscuity problem, for all sorts of other problems that we have in society today, crime, for corruption, fraud, all these things can be resolved eventually by working on strengthening families in society over the long term. But you say, well, that's going to take a long time. But there is no other solution. There is no other solution other than to build strong families. But people keep saying, oh, well, the government can do something. The government can do something. Well, we can see where that's gotten us. It hasn't gotten us very far at all. Okay. All right. And so in a similar way, you have the sun, and yes, okay, they took out Pluto, didn't they? Okay, okay. Um, so we have the sun, Earth, and Moon, and then we have all the planets around the sun. Yes, but we're learning more and more things about the universe, aren't we, and about our solar system as well. Yeah. All right. And okay. The true love equality is equality through order. So equality is equality through order. In other words, subject and object partner, a man and a woman. And there's a difference of roles, and man is the masculine subject, the woman is the feminine object, and a difference of position. And the man is this, in the subject role on the right side, a woman in the object role on the left side. And in equality, there can be equality of love, equality of character, equality of satisfaction, but there's not equality in any other sense between men and women. So uh, if a man tries to pretend to be a woman or a woman pretending to be a man, does not make her equal, does not make him equal, and also women trying to take over a man's role does not make her equal. Women and men each, women and men each need to excel in their own respective roles and not try to take over the other's role because somehow we think that makes us equal. So that's important for people to understand, and that's the misunderstanding of this is part of the issue that is undermining families today. So this is an important part of building strong and effective families. And by strong and effective, we mean that families that build true love and pass down true love in absolute values, in absolute sex to their children and to the community around them. And the privileges of true love, there's the right of participation, the right of equal status, and the right to live together. And the right of participation means that is the wife has the right to be participating in what the husband is doing, and right of equal status. So if the and the example that Father gives is that if a prince chooses to marry a young woman from the village, then she becomes, the princess or the prince's wife, and so that she has the status that is equal to her husband, okay? And the right to live together. So living together then is the privilege of true love, and also there is the right of inheritance then. And it is in true love that God gives us all that is His. He inherits His intention. Eventually, when we accomplish all this, His intention is to inherit everything to us. And so true love is investing and forgetting and not remembering. My way of understanding this is to say that true love is love that does not keep account of how much has been given. We don't keep account of how much we spent on diapers or even on our children's education. We don't expect to be repaid. So we don't keep an account of how much we have invested in our children, or even not just money, but even in terms of our effort and our love. We don't keep an account of that. We don't say, well, I did this for you when you were young, and so therefore you need to do this for me now. That's not true love. It's giving and forgetting and want to give more. But parents always, or at least parents who have true love, always want to give more, no matter how much they have already given to their children. And it's living for the sake of others. And the origin and source and origin of true love is God. When there is no true love, God is also not present. And I think we already covered the fact that true love is love that flows from God's shimjong. It is a flow that God's core is shimjong. Shimjong meaning what? Shimjong is that irrepressible impulse of the heart to invest love in an object partner so as to experience love and joy. Irrepressible impulse of the heart. It never stops. It never stops. It never stops. That is true love. People use the phrase true love in poetry and in these romance novels or whatever, but they don't understand true love. And what Father means by true love is completely different from what they mean by true love. They think that true love is just something where a couple just loves each other and they don't betray each other, and they just have sex with each other. Well, that's nice, but that in itself is not true love. True love is a whole lot more difficult than that. Because we are blessed for eternity, right? When we are blessed, we make a promise to form an eternal relationship of husband and wife. Eternal, eternal. And eternal is a long time. And in that long time, there are ups and downs. The ups can be very high, and the downs can be very deep. But true love is love that perseveres through all of that, continues to give love through all of that, through all of that. And I know some of you have experienced very deep valleys in your relationship with your spouse that are perhaps experiencing a deep valley right now. But please remember that, as the king says, in his recent lectures on true love hormones, as long as there is a spark, as long as there is a spark of desire to make it work, there is still a high probability that it can work. And this is why the king is emphasizing the true love hormone lectures so much right now. Yes, because he wants every blessing to work. And um, and you may say, well, Tim, you can say that because you have a wonderful wife and you have a wonderful relationship. Well, I'll tell you, there have been some, we've had some valleys. We've had some valleys. And I think, what is it? This year we're working on year number 44 since we're blessed. And I think any couple that has been together 44 years has experienced valleys. But we are together still because we um, never gave up on the objective to keep on going and uh, to persevere even during the tough times. Okay, so please keep that in mind. Okay, so where there is no true love, God is not present. And true love is the source of life, source of happiness, source of peace, source of unity, source of joy, source of true lineage, and absolute purity movement, and peace movement center on true love. And if true love has not borne fruit, it will remain unfertilized even if it is planted. We got this thing here. Let's get rid of that again. If true love has not borne fruit, it will remain unfertilized even if it is planted. This is in volume 608 of Father's Speeches, page 48. His words on February 18th, 2009. The family is the basic unit of heaven. Let me just make sure I'm getting this right. Okay, 5, 6, and 7. Okay. Family is the basic unit of heaven because it's members of the parents, the couple. So the parents in this case, this would actually be the grandparents, right? Couple means husband and wife. This would be the grandparents, the children, and the siblings. And there's a relational nature. There's above and below. That is the grandparents, parents, grandparents, and the children. And then right and left would be the husband and wife. And then front and back. Front to back means the brothers or the siblings. And the front is from front to back, the siblings line up in order of their ages, with the eldest being at the front and the youngest being at the back. Okay, and then relationally, the family needs to be one body, right? So let's even after the children grow to at least physical maturity at maybe 18 or 20 or 22, whatever, and leave the home, we need to continue to work on the unity of the family. And the order of the family is the standard for the order of the universe. The family is God's ideal of creation. And heaven here represents the number 3, God, Adam, and Eve. And earth is the number 4, God, Adam, and Eve, and children. And then the family is the God, father and mother, husband and wife, elder and younger, so the 2 siblings. So this is the family then is the number 7. I think I have different fonts from the person who created this, and that's why we have this problem with oops, I'm going the wrong direction here, with the fonts. I guess we'll have to make a PDF out of this, right? Okay. Then the dual purposes, okay? Every existing being has a sung-sung type sector and a purpose of the whole. And the purpose of the whole is a song-song type. And the Hyungsang type sector, when the purpose of the individual purpose of the individual is the Hyungsang type purpose. So this is public and private. So here we have the individual living for the sake of the family, so that and then the families live for the sake of the tribe. Actually, here we should correct this to tribe. Let me correct that to tribe right now. And then the tribes live for the sake of the ethnic group, and then the ethnic groups live for the sake of the nation. The nations live for the sake of the world. The world lives for the sake of the cosmos. The cosmos lives for the sake of God. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then God then lives for the sake of each individual. And so this actually needs to be needs to be an arrow coming back. Okay. So energy is for the sake of particles. Particles make up atoms. Atoms make up molecules. Molecules create plants, and then plants are eaten by animals. Animals are eaten by human beings, and then the human beings are serving God. And then God's is also continuously pouring energy into the universe. So it's a connected organic body, both the human society and also God's creation as a whole. All right, and then and so here, okay, the 4 realms of Shimjong, the heart, and the 3 great kingships. 3 great kingships or generation kingships. I think actually it's really the same thing, because the 3 generation kingships are actually great. So I don't think we need to make a distinction here. Yeah, okay. The problem occurs in English because there is no problem in Korean. Samde Wangkwon is the Korean, right? Sam means what? Sam means 3. Wang is king, and Wangkwon means kingship, okay? But then the Te, how do you translate the Te? And it can be translated either as great or generation, because those are, I guess, what they call homophones, right? In other words, they are 2 words that have exactly the same pronunciation. And I think also Father, even when he was writing in these, in expressing this in Hancha, Chinese characters, he used the 2 different Chinese characters. So I think this ambiguity is purposeful, intentional. So I don't think we need to get too hung up on it. 3 generation kingships, 3 great kingships. The generation kingships are great, all right? So there's no problem. Okay, all right. And I think, okay, here we have a generation, okay. In the family pledge, yeah, we have 3 generation. Okay, here it's generation, right? Okay. Now, I remember someone gave a very convoluted explanation of the difference between three great kingships and three generation kingships. But also, Father has said that the principle is actually simple. Okay, it's simple. So I don't think we need to get too complicated. Okay, well, okay. So anyway, the three Shimjong, four great realms of Shimjong. What are they? Well, when we are born, the Shimjong of the child. And the Shimjong of the child is the Shimjong that is relating to the mother, right? The children or infants, when they come out of the womb, they immediately are attracted to their mother and they suckle on the nipple of their mother's breast automatically and instinctively. And they love the mother. And also, eventually, they understand that there's another human being out there as well. They love the father as well. And then the Shimjong of the sibling is the second, and then the conjugal is the husband-wife Shimjong. So, and then the parental Shimjong is so as we go through life, we acquire these three Shimjong. And then when we and then excuse me, let me take some water here. Then in the original design, it was when people would, oh boy, excuse me, people would acquire these four Shimjong, or they would perfect these four Shimjong before they came together. And I asked Reverend Hughes, how does that happen? How can you have the parental Shimjong without having a child, or how can you have the conjugal Shimjong without having a spouse? And Father's explanation is that human beings learned this from nature. They learned this from nature. And Adam and Eve would have learned this from nature. Nature was going to teach them about husband and wife Shimjong and about parental Shimjong. But now, because of the fall, now we don't have these Shimjong unless we actually have a spouse or have children. But the original plan was to have Adam and Eve grow to the point where they have uh, uh, completed the four great Shimjong, and then they come together as husband and wife and have children. And then, of course, God's masculine or character is projected as the man, and his feminine character is projected into the world as the woman, and then they come together as husband and wife in that way. And then the three great kingships, all right, the grandparents or three generation kingships, if you prefer. Grandparents represent the past, and they are in the place where they are representing God, not that they are God, not that they are God, but they are representing God. The parents representing the present, they are in the place of representing humanity, and the children are representing the future, and they are the future kings. And so the three generation kingships, the realm of the royal family. The royal family is when this spreads out into tribes and ethnic groups, then that is the royal family. And then all humankind then would be God's children. So then why do we get married? Well, we get married to be complete, perfect, and whole. Prior to marriage, we're only half. And so today, when people say, "Oh no, I'm too busy to get married," "Oh, I don't want to get married," I don't want to get tied down in a family. Having a family will make it more difficult for me to rise in my career, in my company, the career ladder. But we are actually created by God to be married at some point in our lives. And without being married, we are not really complete. Our character cannot be complete, especially in this fallen world, because it is in the family, that we learn love. And we get married to resemble God, who is complete, perfect, and whole, right? Because the family then has the male and female, as God has made it female, and to capture and occupy the true love of God, to complete and perfect love, perfect oneself, and thus the owner of your sexual organ is your spouse, and love is experienced and completed through one's spouse. And this kind of thinking is quite foreign to most people in the world today. And this is what is problem. This is what is wrong with the world today. And this kind of understanding of the family is important. That family is not an option. It is a necessity for us. I wouldn't call it a duty, but I would call it a necessity for us to become the people that God intended us to be, and for us and to be a part of the solution towards building harmonious human society. Who was it? There was a conservative person who appeared on Bill Maher's talk show, and this conservative person was talking about faith and family and freedom or something like that. And Bill Maher said, "Well, I'm not. That doesn't really relate to me because I don't have a family." And so then the conservative guest said to him, I can't remember who it was, said, "Okay, well then you're not part of the solution." Bam! Yes, that is true. If you're not going to have a family, you're not part of the solution to the world. You are not part of the solution. And if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So if you want to be a part of the solution, you get married, you you work with your spouse through all the ups and downs, through all the hills and valleys to bring about true love, right? And to complete your character, to have children, to pass down true love, absolute sex to your children, absolute values to your children, and also come together as a community to create an ethnic group that also spreads these ideals in the world. That's how we create a better world. People think, oh no, I want to create a better world, but by joining the Peace Corps and going somewhere and helping people who are dying, or okay, that's fine, but that's very temporary. If you want to really help to create the long-term better world, a world where uh, people can live in harmony eventually, then have a family, get married, have a family, and do the hard work, do the heavy lifting, do the heavy lifting of learning how to love in the family. All right, so then a second reason is to perfect God and perfect love's realm of liberation. So without us going through this process, God himself is not perfect. God himself is not perfect. We say, well, wait. God is, oh no, God is perfect. Of course he's perfect. Well, no, without children, he's not perfect. Parents are not parents unless we have children, right? So also God, if God is the parent of humanity, then unless he has children who relate to him, as perfect objects of love, he is not perfect as God. He is incomplete. So Adam and Eve's marriage then would have been God's marriage. It would have been God then would have also, because God is masculine, he would have then being married, being he's in the masculine position, he would be marrying to Eve, and becoming Adam, becoming the substantial incarnation of God. And in the first love, in other words, on the wedding night, the first love, the first sexual experience, this will be God's first love and the point of union between God and human being and love. And so in order to multiply God's true love true life and true lineage eternally, we must get married. So the conclusion, the purpose of creating human beings is for God to have a body, for God to be able, for us to become God's temple where God can dwell, and then become the object of God's true love, and so to experience substantial love and multiply the children of God in order to multiply His children. Okay? So this is the reason that we get married, and why we emphasize the blessing in the Unification Church. The principal view of marriage is that the marriage is for the sake of our partner. Why? The true path of human life is the path of existing for the sake of the other. Being born for the sake of others, growing for the sake of others, getting married for the sake of the other, living for the sake of the other, and heading towards the world of living for others by helping each other to achieve completion. The world of living for others is the ideal world, the kingdom of heaven. Thus, the basic unit of the kingdom of heaven is the family. So when during the teenage years, when a boy or girl is exercising absolute sex, in other words, is exercising, pure love. In other words, not having an exclusive relationship or not having sex, not having any kind of love relationship before marriage. Why are they doing that? Because they are living for the sake of their future partner. Somewhere out there, there's a partner for them. Somewhere out there, God is preparing a partner for them. Then when you meet that partner, when the boy or girl meets that partner, they want to be able to give their first love to that partner. One Korean minister says that he explained it this way. He said he would take an apple and he would take a bite out of the apple. And then he would give it to one of the workshop students and say, here, you can eat this apple. And the workshop student would say, I don't want this apple. You already took a bite out of it. And the minister would say, exactly, exactly. That's right. And that's how he explained the importance of remaining pure, sexually pure until marriage. I think that's a pretty good explanation. I think, I don't know how you feel about it. All right. So an ideal husband and wife are unchangeable. Parents, we cannot change our parents. We cannot change our children. Kids, did you hear that? Cannot change our parents and we cannot change our children. What about the couple? What about the couple? Right. So the ideal husband and wife are unchangeable. They cannot be changed. As I said, there are deep valleys. There are deep valleys. But God has been through some deep valleys too, hasn't he? And in fact, he's in some deep valleys right now. So let's keep that in mind when we are going through this whole process. Let's see here, okay. Completion of the true family ideal. Completion of a husband and wife ideal. Completion of the parent ideal, okay. So then God and human beings as subject to object here, and God and husband. Okay. Husband. And I don't see why that should be like that. Okay. And God related to the husband as a subject and object partner, and then also husband and wife as subject and object. Now, God is, a subject for all human beings. So this doesn't mean that there can't be a relationship between God and the wife. Of course there can. The wife prays, and of course there's a relationship there between God and the wife. But this is the basic family order, though, that the husband is in the subject position, the wife in the object position. The husband in the subject position unites with God, his subject, and brings completion to his object partner, the wife. The husband in the subject position unites with God, his subject, and brings completion to the object partner, his wife. The wife in the object position unites with her husband, her subject partner, and brings completion to her subject partner, the husband. So there's completion. The wife is also bringing completion to the husband. Husband and wife were born as a son and daughter. Son and daughter, they grow and complete themselves by attending their parents. Accordingly, the husband attends his wife as he would attend his mother. And I think we need to put a comma in there. Okay. And the wife attends her husband as she would attend her father. Together, they both bring completion to each other. I think the word both is probably redundant. Together, they bring completion to each other by living for each other in daily life. In this way, they become a true couple, resembling the perfect God, eventually becoming perfected true parents. Okay. Yes, this is the basic idea of how it works. Okay, of course, in reality, it's not that easy, but yeah, we don't expect it to be easy. Never promised you a rose garden. That's a very old song. I think that goes back to the 1950s. I never promised you a rose garden or something like that. Okay. Completion of the sibling ideal. All right, and the completion of the child ideal. The parents, children are subject and object, and then the elder brother and younger brother. What's happening here? Let's see if we can't. Let's see. Okay, what's happening? All right. Okay, let's choose another color here. Let's choose a yellow. Okay, a yellow. I think that's going to work, right? Younger brother. Yeah, these words don't actually fit into these circles, do they? Okay. The older brother is in the subject position, unites with his parents, the subject, and brings completion to his object, the younger brother. The younger brother. Okay. The younger brother in the object position unites with his elder brother, his subject, and brings completion to the subject, the elder brother. Yeah, I think white is not exactly the best color here. The elder and younger brothers were born as second selves of the parents. Accordingly, the elder brother attends his younger brother as he would attend his parents. And, comma, the younger brother attends his elder brother as he would attend his parents. Together, they both bring completion to each other by living for each other in daily life. How to do this in practice, right? For example, parents. One of the challenges of being a parent to multiple children is that there tends to be competition among children for the love of the parents. So how to avoid that? Well, the king has given a very good um, content on that, and he calls it the one-on-one training. One-on-one training, in other words, having a children's day with each child. And you can go to the king's sermons and you can hear him talk about that directly. And I'm sure many of you have already done that. Determination of the original value of creation and the standard for that value. The determination of value, subject and object. And when there's a desire, the subject has a desire, and then the object must fulfill that desire in its content and temperament, and then it has value. Do all objects have value? One thing about the Marxist theory of labor that Marxists tried to say that, well, labor innately has value, but the counter to that is that, okay, well, suppose there is a factory that only makes shoes for the left foot. A factory that only makes shoes for the left foot. A lot of labor is going into making those shoes. And so by Marxist theory, a shoe for the left foot should have value in and of itself without a shoe for the right foot, right? Obviously, no. No one's going to buy a shoe for the left foot by itself, right? When you go to a shoe store, you're going to come away with two shoes, one for the left foot, one for the right foot. You know? So an object has to fulfill the desire of the subject in order for it to have value. That's important. So there is nothing has value innately. It has to fulfill the desire of some subject. So the determination of value from the perspective of purpose. So, for example, if you have a knife, or let's see here, or a paper or a house. I can't remember now how this is working. Okay, well, a knife, for example, can be used for many different things. It can be used in the kitchen to cook food, or it can be used to harm someone. Right? A paper, a piece of paper, a blank sheet of paper has no value in itself, but a paper where the Declaration of Independence is written will have incredible value. And a house also, a house that is used, let's say a crack house, right? A crack house does not have value, but a house where a very wonderful person lives will have a great deal of value. You know, when um, the media reporters would go to the Tennessee Chongpyong and interview the king. And then they would say, okay, well, where do you live? We want to see we want to see what kind of a huge house and wonderful house that you're living in. And so he would point up to the top of the hill and says, and many of you have seen that, I'm sure, and say, well, that's where I live. And the journalists are stunned and they're surprised. They say, well, wait a second, we expected that you would be living in some beautiful place. But that house on the hill in Chongpyong has tremendous value because that is where the second king of Cheongguk lives. And that is what makes it a palace. A certain someone who should not be named has built her palace in Chongpyong in Korea and used tens of millions of dollars to build this house, right? It's huge. And you go in and it's ornate and it has all sorts of marble and everything like that. But you know what? It has no value at all. Despite all the money that went into it, it has no value at all for God. God looks at that house. I don't know if he wants to destroy it or what, but it has no value. So, so in the family, the feeling of a child has value. In the nation, the patriot has value. In the world, the saint has value. In the cosmos, divine sons and daughters have value. In the way of in the way of the family. So, determining original creation value. Okay, well, let's do this one more slide. Okay. The original creation value of any individual entity is determined by the relative reciprocal relationship between A, the purpose of the entity as an object according to God's ideal of God's creation, and B, the desire of human subject to pursue its original creation value when relating to the entity. So the object of purpose of existence, okay, and the desire of human subject to pursue its original creation value when relating to the entity. So human subject and object have give and receive action centering on God's creation ideal. And this then is how we have the original creation value. Okay? Hence, in order for an object to realize its original creation value, it must become one in a union with a human subject partner through give and receive action, thereby establishing an original four-position foundation in which it becomes God's third object partner. So here, to original ideal, it must become one in union with a human subject partner through give and receive action. So this is why then when Adam and Eve fell, creation lost its value. And that is why, as in Romans, it says in Romans, Paul says in Romans, the creation travails in agony, right? Because without completed human beings who are God's children, creation does not have its original creation value, the value of its original creation. And that is why, anything that Father touches, anything that Father used has value because Father used it in a reciprocal relationship with that object centering on God's creation ideal. And so that object now has a value in and of itself. Right? Any car that he rode in, any place where he slept, any chopsticks that he may have used. Some people have even saved a napkin that Father used. It is only when a completed human being who is one with God uses that object in accordance with God's creation ideal that this now has value. Okay. Right, that's all for today. So I will see you again for the OSDP. I'll see you again next week. And of course, tomorrow we will continue our regular news hour. God bless, Godspeed. May His kingdom come quickly.